So the Maamer Alkin Karu Liyam Mele Purim, Tafshin Yud Gimel, is a classic Maamer. Right, it starts off with Azat Pesach Davar. It's the Maamer Hasheni, the second Maamer that was said by that Farbrengen. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was the first Farbrengen that Rebbe said two Maamarim. The Rebbe said the first Maamer by Yeh Minas Adas at the beginning of the Farbrengen, and this was all at the end of the Farbrengen. Right, a different Tiyurim from the Chassidim. How the Rebbe's face, the whole Tnua changed, and the Rebbe started saying the story, and there was a whole shock because it was the Tnua that was there whenever the Rebbe would say a Maamer. The Rebbe already said a Maamer. That's when the Rebbe said the second Maamer, I think Karu Liyam Purim, and with the Lashon Harav, Pesach Davar, he said Kshura Kenire Ma'meiros. Kenire Kenire. So the story of the Maamer is a beautiful story, the history, the background. But the MSC is that the toichen of the Maamer, right? Because the Rebbe could have said any Maamer. We have Zokt Chassidus, and Chassidus is Toil Level. But the actual story within the Maamer, inside the Maamer, is Be'etzim speaks about the Der Inyan. B'chlal, the history of Klal Yisrael is fascinating, right? There were so many times throughout history where Klal Yisrael were literally brought to the brink. Mamish. Gzeras Haman. We had the previous Dair, that I would always say, like, Sokum Pamayim Tzara, the Meirois of the Let's the Dair. And Kohena Lechohena, there were so many times where it was like, you looked around and it seemed that Tishtakach Torah mi Yisrael, Tishtakach Yisrael mi Torah. There were so many times where it's signing the Guf, signing the Nefesh, where it's Mamish Atat, and we won, and we make a Yom Tif, and we eat Keminig Yisrael. Right? So the point of the Shaila is why? Right? What's actually going on? What's the story? So literally the story is there's something called anti-Semitism, and every few deiris it rears its ugly head and it tries to take us down, and later says Matzaleinu miyadam. But first of all, Hagufa, where does anti-Semitism come from? The stuff, the greatest Shaila everyone asks. And also, the Kishbarach Matzaleinu miyadam, what are we doing in Mitzrayim? What are we doing under Gzeras Haman? What are we doing in this reality? Right? We have to say miyadam. And so Machshavas Yisrael has all kinds of ways of dealing with this and explaining what's going on, why the ups and downs, and why the back and forth. So this Maamer is a very Yesodistic Maamer in the whole Havana of Chassidus, in Be'etzim, what is actually going on, right? Because Purim was the most extreme l'chayr of all these times. Because Paroi was al Ascharim, love, and there's love and B'Kzakar Sakol, but B'Gashmi is, after Klal Yisrael became a nation, Haman came and actually tried to destroy the Yidden completely. So Purim is that nekuda, that etzem of the survival of Klal Yisrael, and we need to understand where does this Gzeira come from? Why are we always pushed so far, and why are we saved at the last minute? What's the real story behind it? And that's what's in the story of the Maamer, right? In the Maamer of today, the Nasach Haskalah and Avodah, but when you think about it, it's actually what the Maamer is saying. The Maamer is explaining to us what's the story of Purim and what's the story of Bichlal. That's one nekuda. Another nekuda that you learn in the Maamer, and it's a geshmak word, but to understand the Gedol Achiddush of what's happening here. So with Pashtus, when we talk about the survival of Klal Yisrael and the relationship of Yidden to Umas Ha'olam, especially by Purim, so let's speak specifically when you get to Purim. There's many sikhs about Purim. Right, so you listen to the Purim Farbrengens, you learn the Purim Farbrengens. So there's the themes that are constantly repeating themselves. And what's the Toichin? That the Yidden are Kivsa Achas Bein Shivim Zeivim, and we have to find a way to survive, and our real way of survival is through Emunah and B'tachin in the Eibishter. And we have to use diplomacy, and we need our people in Washington, right? And this we learned from Esther. She was a She's the one that could go into Achashverosh. We're set up for success. Mordechai, Esther, it's all great. And Esther is actually about to go in, but what does she do? She fasts for 3 days. Is that what she's trying to do? She's trying to be Noisechei by Achashverosh, coming without Rishos. She fasts that she should be less Noisechei. Right? And this is the Nekud that would chazor again and again to bring out this point that at the end of the day, diplomacy is nice, and playing the political game is gewaldig, but ultimately it's all about bitachon more than David. So how do we understand it? So very often the sprach goes like this. The sprach goes like this. Look, if you're going to look mitzad teva for Yidden to survive al pi teva, what are the odds? We're kivsa achas ben shivim ze'ivim. They all hate us. We should disappear. There were much greater nations than us and empires, much bigger numbers, much more power, much more money, and much more success, that completely disappeared, right? All the Romans are not around, the Egyptians, all these people are not around. Klal Yisrael, which is Atam Amat Kol Amim, survived. Right, so even without the Sinas Yisrael that exists all around the world, that's in fact that Yidden are still around today is the biggest nest. The famous Fabrengen, Vayikra, Tav Shinun, Amzu Yatzartili, where the Rebbe explained that the biggest nest, the biggest Kiddush Hashem that exists in the world is the Metzias from Klal Yisrael. The fact that Yidden exists, even if Yidden are fried, Yidden don't do any mitzvahs. The Rebbe says, you learn the pasuk in two parts. Amzu Yatzartili, Tilasi Yisaperu. Tilasi Yisaperu is Yidden that daven and learn and seeing the praises of Hashem, which is the kavanah. But even without that, Amzu Yatzarti Li, the fact that Klal Yisrael exists is Yatzarti Li, is the biggest Kiddush Hashem and Gilui Elikus in the world that we're around. So al pi teva, there's no way to exist. So how do we assure and make sure that we have our survival? How do we make sure that it happens? Torah mitzvahs. L'maylo min hateva. Nisin. Right? So al pi teva, we're doomed. L'maylo min hateva, that's where we win. But here in the Maamer, the narrative is pun fakir. Yeah? If you got to Sif, where does it start speaking about this Indian? Sif Hey, yeah. Why did Haman do the Goyro? What's he playing lots? Yeah, that's what he used to do 2,000 years ago. That's the way it was 2,500 years ago. It's between Ba'Yisrael and Ba'Yisheni. They threw lots. Right, but what was he actually doing? Haman understood that in the world of Ishtalshalos, in Teva, in the system, Klal Yisrael always wins and beats the system. Because without the system, Klal Yisrael is on top of Umm. We're better. We're Rachmanim Aishanim Gem Lichsadim, right? We're Teva, we're better. We do Torah mitzvahs, even Toisha Yisrael, Malaya mitzvahs Kerimin. So we win. The good guys win. That's the way the system works. The good guys win. Takas da Shaila, why do bad things happen to good people? But the system is that the good guys win. Haman understood that. Haman came and said, it's not the Yidden coming to Lamayla Meteva, it's Haman coming to Lamayla Meteva. Haman comes and says, in Ishtalshlos I have no chance. Lamayla Ishtalshlos, there I'm good as anybody else. Because there's no rules. When there's no rules, anybody could win. Right? Nachtifer here, it doesn't go into this Maamer. In other places, it's not only that he could win, but he would win. Right? The odds are that he would win. First of all, it's 50-50, but Nachmer, there's odds that he would win. That's for later. It's not this Maamer. And it could is because we're buvatzich oistrik and more Lamaila, that there's no rules.
B'shita no rules. It's the B'davka.
No, because if he didn't win, then it's not. Right? It's like the Rebbe saying that. Even though the Alter Rebbe and Chassidus teaches us that Simson Lav Kipshut, the Rebbe said, "By mir legt sich up, Simson Kipshut legt sich up asach mer," because that would be Megalanim Nanim Nois, right? Because that would prove that the Eibusher is not movable in any rules, right? So there's not a kudah to say. Haman's like, 1 second, where is the Eibusher really going to show that he's mamish balabos and there's no rules whatsoever? In Haman, but he doesn't go there clearly, at least in the Maamer. In Siva, when it goes into Chashveroish, there's you could go there, but even without that, the Nekuda is that Haman says Farkeret, the system you didn't win. I have to go beyond the system, right? So that itself, it's important Nekuda to understand. It's a very interesting mahal. It's a very different Nekuda than when you get to Purim. Many sichos and mamarim of Purim that have a different message. Obviously, it's not a stira because we want different dargas and what we mean by teva and the system, but it's a different mahalach. It's the mahalach that within the rules we win. The issues start l'mayla, and then we have to. And then the Nes of Purim, the Avodah of Purim, has come to a place where, in such a place where there are no rules, and be'etzem we shouldn't win, and there we win, right? And that's the mahalach of the Maamer. Now the Maamer is a journey, and there's sif to sif, and just one nekuda in learning the Maamer. So b'chal you have this in Malug. I think in this Maamer mamish b'miyuchad. That it's mamish a build. It takes you from darge to darge, and then a shaila, and then it goes noch tifer and noch tifer. And because of that, it tries to stay, in order that each sieve takes you to a certain place and it stops there. And often when you're learning that sieve, it's like, one second, but what are you saying? 'Cause there's a prat here missing. And you almost have to do a shtickle iskafia, not to go deeper. In other words, don't, and even though you know all the things from places in Chassidus and L'chaira, what it says here is machriach to something tiffer, because there's a tmiyah that Seder, don't jump there. In other words, right now you're holding by seichel, you're by seichel, you're by ratzin, you're by ratzin. Right, so Lamashal in Siv Beis, L'chaira, the maskana of Siv Beis would come out that goyrol is l'mayla me'ishtalshlus, Gilui Yitzhak l'mayla me'ishtalshlus. And what's ishtalshlus? Chachma. Okay, goyrol is l'mayla me'chachma. So, in other words, you just read this, you come to a place that goyrol is keser, goyrol is l'mayla me'chachma, right? And only later he brings you to a place that it's l'mayla me'ratzin. And then we come to Baal haratzin. And we say gufa kama v'kama ifanim. Which ultimately, and then ultimately at the end of the Maamer, we come to the Nakuda of Bchira, and then Bchira within Goyrol. But leave each thing for its place, and even if there's certain shilas, things aren't fully clear, while you're learning the Sif, you stay in that Sif and that in. Now, when we get to the Sif, okay, so when we get to the Sugya of Goyrol and Ratzin, so in Sif Beis, right, so we say that Purim is like Kippurim. Right, and Gufa from the Maamer and the Aris. There's three ways of this equalizer. Right, it's saying that Purim is like Purim is like Kippurim. There's three Eifan. There's the Tikkuni Zoyar. There's the Alter Rebbe Bekama Mekoymis in Torah. And then there's one place there that goes Nachtif. The Tikkuni Zoyar says that Purim is like Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is here, and Purim is close. Then there's Bekam Mekoymis in Torah. The Alter Rebbe says that Yom Kippurim is like Purim, so they're mamish equal. Kippurim is like Purim. And then one of the places the Alter Rebbe said that the fact that it's Kippurim means that Purim is Nachah. Right? So we come to ways that Purim is even higher than Kippurim. Why is that Purim is higher than Kippurim? So that ultimately the Rebbe is Mevar in Sif Daled, the beginning of the beer, and then comes back at the end of the Maamer. And that itself is very interesting. That the Rebbe is miyasid, the word the Rebbe says based off Torah, but the Rebbe learned anders than Torah. But what's the word in Sif Daled? Where do we see that Purim is higher than Kippurim? Both of them are connected to Oirin Tzayif Baal HaRotzin, the Kapara. Right, the Kapara that happens, we talk Baal HaRotzin, higher than Rotzin. We'll get back to Rotzin in a moment. But how is Purim greater? Because Yom Kippur, even though it's so mishal Yom Mechaper, but at the end of the day you got to do tshuva. Yom Kippur is Mechaper Lashavim. Right, that's how we pass from Lapoya. And Masha'enke in Purim, what about Purim? So it's interesting. The Alter Rebbe Torah, the Rebbe's Mitzayin to the Alter Rebbe says that Yom Kippur, what brings about the Kapara tshuva? Purim was greater than tshuva. What was it? It was Mesiras Nefesh. Oh, we all know the famous Torah that the Alter Rebbe says that the entire year of the Gzeira, Le'olsa, Daita, Machsheves, Chutz, Chas V'Sholom, the entire Klal Yisrael, every single year didn't have Machsheves Chutz, and they were already Limser Nafsham. Right, so there's many shilas on this assumption of the Alter Rebbe. Number one, it's like, how do you know that Le'olsa Daita, right? This was the Chassidus was the Eichacha. The Alter Rebbe's Ruach HaKodesh. How does he know that every single yid in that time didn't have machshavas chutz? He didn't machshavas, right? But the other shayla is also, what's the pshat the full year? The Gzeira wasn't a full year, right? The Gzeira was already in the spatel, and Chavki Mulsivin. Fine, but that's a shayla of its own. The word is, Alter Rebbe says that it was higher, and that's what makes Purim. Why is Purim higher than Kippurim? Because Kippurim is tshuva, and Purim is Mesiras Nefesh. It's higher than tshuva. It's Etzem Nefesh Mamash. The Rebbe says no. That's not the word. The word is that that Purim is higher than Kippurim for Keret. That Yom Kippur needed a Pa'ula, right? It needs tshuva. In Mechaper Elamat Tshuva, the top of page 6 in the Kodesh. But the Kapara Shaisa L'Chol HaYehudim Mimei Purim Hayzeh Yom Simcha. 28 Kein Mashma B'Tere'er Megillas Esther Kuv Chaf Aleph. It's a very interesting mashma. The Rebbe learns it. Is this Kein brought up? The Kufcha Beis is brought. In the Maamer is it? Have it here? Kufcha Beis. Where? What page?
Page 23. Yeah.
Right, so he says, right, so the line, it's page 23 in the Kovetz, so the line starts canal, a bit towards the half, but still closer to the top, the bottom, end of the page. That, in other words, when he speaks about what actually happens, how we celebrate the way Mishnah Simcha Shebechinas Galos Eretz Bekelim, Kaidei Simcha Bechinas Gilui Erer, V'los Lo Yiksid B'Vech Yivash Lo Yiduch Lo Eretz Lash B'Vech 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 Yivash Al Beporim Shezachol L'Mayli Yisera V'hu Bechinas Mesiras Nefesh Ha'amiti Lias Dvukim B'Atzmo Seirin Seif. Therefore, it was not L'Kachem Nikar Yimei Mishnah V'Simcha Nichzayin Yatsa Soid, etc. Meaning, in the Poil be the Tag Drik Zich in how we actually celebrate as Yimei Simcha. But what brought us to this great Yilu? Why can we celebrate Purim in such a oifen that even the Achila V'Shtia, that the others go into Kein, we don't have to fast, because of the great Mesiras Nefesh. But the Rebbe says, Kein Masra Matera Er, the way the Rebbe learns this word, the Reizei Yimei Simcha, it's in the contrast to Tshuva. That Yom Kippur is totally in something, to bring the kapara. Masha'enki in Purim it doesn't need anything. In 29, Torah says, Mashma, he says in Torah Mashma shakapar b'mei Purim hoyisayde mesiras nefesh alehem. So Yeshloimer, this is Siftes. Rebbe has a beer. The Rebbe learns mikra moitzi mikra midei pshuta, you know, right? Or the Rebbe is saying no. The pshat in Torah is that we don't need any pula. The pula was much for another mikra. It was different in. But the etzem hamshach, the etzem kapara came from a place beyond any of our avodah. We'll get back to that point. Just want to bring out this in Kudman, how the Rebbe learns this in. Now, we get to the Ratzin and Geiro.
Kippur doesn't work that way. That's really the end of the Kappa, and Tshuva is just.
So we're going to get to that because the Chayr is the same thing in Kippur. It's Itzumi Shal Yoim Lashavim. Itzumi Shal Yoim Lashavim. Right. Okay, so let's go back a drop. So we have the Geiro. Okay, Geiro and Ratzin. So first in Sif Beis, we speak about Goyrel, right? And when does Goyrel happen? Goyrel happens b'shnei dvarim shavim. Now, b'shnei dvarim shavim, practically, b'shnei dvarim shavim itself can happen in three different ways. Right? And we see in the Ha'aris, in Ha'aris 19 and 20, he brings the idea that l'chayra a goyrol is in shnei dvarim shavim, avol shayach gam dvarim she'einam shavim, but then it's still considered shavim. How does it work? A functional human being that uses their brain, so we make decisions hopefully based off our mind or our midas, whatever. But there's a reason, subjective reason or objective reason that pulls us in that direction to do it. Now, what happens is there are times that our seichel can't be machriya. Why can't the seichel be machriya? It's right here, yeah. There's the same thing now. Taka, if you want the two different kinds, it's taka. It's not a competition, right? But you have 2 cups. I don't know. There's a whole pack of cups here. So you'll say it could be a reason because one's at the top, so it's much easier. It's the weiter, so there's a certain reason. But they're right in front of you, and they're both the same far. There's no reason to be machriya one over the other. Fine. So what do? You do a goyrel. Technically, what's a goyrel? Right? A goyrel doesn't actually get to throw lots. Technically, if I have 2 cups here, I just say, okay, whichever one comes into my hand, you did a goyrel. Basically, there's a place that a person comes benefesh and says, my koiches pnimim can't choose this. This is not in their domain. Because they know how to choose based off preference. There is no preference here. So what do? I'll leave it to the goyrel. Let the goyrel make the decision for me. That's one. So in that case, it's objectively, these things are actually shnei dvarim shavim. They're actually shnei dvarim shavim. And therefore, I resort to goyrel. But then there could be a matziv where they're not actually shnei dvarim shavim. They're not shnei dvarim shavim. 2 different kinds of foods. There's a smorgasbord. There's different options. They're whatever, right? There's two different svarim, 2 different maamerim to learn. Right? There could be many different. But what happens is This person, by him, it's Shnei Dvarim Shav. Yeah, this guy's getting this done, this, that, this can increase a maven in Essen. Whatever it is. Right? So the father takes his kid to the store, to the toy store. $9.99 to buy toys. It's Cholamoyed trip. Yeah. So for the kid, it's different toys. It's like a whole avodah. It's a whole choice. It tells his father, you buy. It makes no difference. Taka, the things are different, but for him, Eres Hecher, for him the things are it's shavim. So for him, it's a subjective shavim, not objective. It's a subjective shavim. But then there's Nachmer, where Sai objectively and Sai subjectively, it's not shavim, but it's a conscious choice. He chooses them to be shavim. Right? It's taka not shavim. I prefer Aleph over Beis. But I'm deciding that I will not I will not allow my seichel or midas to make this choice. I will tell I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to listen to the goy, whatever the goy does, that's what I'm going to take. Right? So the person has the ability to say, I choose them to be shavim for me. When we talk about the Eibishter, and Goyrol, what kind of Goyrol are we talking about? We're saying that the level of Goyrol by the Eibishter. So by the Eibishter, there's a level of Ishtalshlus, and Ishtalshlus, the highest level of Ishtalshlus is Chachma, right? So it's Chabad Chagas Neim. So Ishtalshlus corresponds with Seichel. So just like Seichel is the beginning of the Keiches Pnim, is where I relate and I connect with the outside world and the things that I choose. We're using b'chira, choice b'shem hamushal, because real b'chira, as we go, and then the Maamer is something beyond everything else. But we mean here a choice al pi seichel or al pi midas, is that there's something about that thing that makes me choose it. Right? Either in midas I'm drawn to it talks to me, or in seichel that the rules of logic dictate to me that this is the right choice. Right? Should I smoke? Should I not smoke? I don't want to be clear right now. Right? You shouldn't. Right? Seichel says don't, so I don't. So ultimately, the reason why I'm doing it is based off something outside of me. So when it comes to the Chachma of the Eibishter, so Ishtalshlus is the Eibishter relating to the world from a place where the world has some level of Tfisas Makir. The world exists. In a way of Midas, in a way of Moichin. But there's a shaykhis to the world, just like the Eibishter has Chachma, we have Chachma, and we have Midas. So mitzad ishtalshlus. So the Eibishter wants mitzvahs, and he doesn't want averis. Why does he want mitzvahs? Because mitzvahs are good. Why doesn't he want averis? Because averis are bad, right? Because there's toyiv ba'olam and there's rab ba'olam. He wants Yisrael because we're good. He's against the Umas Oil, the Soini Yisrael, because they're bad. In other words, there's something about us, about the Tachtin, that's Ma'orer, by him, certain feelings, thoughts, Kiviyachol, by the Eibishter. But then comes the stage of Goyrol, and in Goyrol, Shnei Dvarim Shavim. Right, where all of a sudden, Yidin and Umas Oilam are Shavim. Mitzvahs and Averis are Shavim. How could it be Shavim? How could it be Shavim? Right, so we can't just say over here that it's objective shavim. Right, all of a sudden over there, they're two similar cups. They're not. There's mitzvahs and averis. There's yidin and goy. Right, but it's subjective. For him, it's shavim. Right, so it's on this level of l'mayla mishtalshalos. It says later in the Maamer, tzedakta matitin loy, rabbi b'shecha matasa loy, v'chi yichbas loy, yishachat min ha'tzabor, min ha'oiref, all the Maamari Chazal. Right? It's irrelevant. These things don't make a difference by him. So that's in Goyro. And we say that Goyro is l'mayla mishem havai. Then he comes in Sif Gimel and says, "V'hini yadua b'maylas hagoyro." Beginning of Sif Gimel. Yadua b'maylas hagoyro shul l'mayla loyrek me'aseichol elagam me'harotzin shul l'mayla me'aseichol. That when you go a bit deeper, you realize that Goyrol, it's not just that when do I resort to Pashas? When do I resort to Goyrol? I try to figure it out. I try to choose something, but it's wholly equal, right? Or nothing here talks to me. So there's nothing about these things that make me choose. So I say, okay, I can choose. Let the Goyrol choose for me. But the emes is that there's something in the middle. Before I make that leap from seichel to goyrol, there's another option. There's another way I could choose. Yitzad ratzin. Ratzin works even there, and especially there, where seichel doesn't work. Dahainu, where seichel comes and says, there is no preference whatsoever. So there's no reason I should make any choice either way. So there, Ratzin comes and says, das will ich. Das will ich. Right, so in the Maamer, so there's another Maamer here in the back. Chai Vinish Absume Poria Tafshin Yud Zayin, which I mentioned this in the message I sent, was it yesterday? That the Pashtos, it seems that halakim of this Maamer, the Mugdik Maamer Tafshin Yud Gimel, were taken from the Maamer Tafshin Yud Zayin, because the Nacha Bilti Mugdik that we have in Tafshin Yud Gimel is mamish just 2 pages. Not more than 2 pages, not even full pages. But the big halakim and Teichon of this Maamer, the Chayra come from this Maamer Tafshin Yud Zayin. So there's some things that are explained, things that are born in our Maamer that are explained by Arichas in Yud Zayin. Some things are explained there, but a bit different, and in our Maamer explains it a shtikol anders. So this inyan of Ratzin Shalomailami Seichel, and then Goyrol, that's higher than that, is explained in the Maamer Yud Zayin, and it has a lot of Geshmaka Oisius. But even after the whole beer there, in our Maamer, he seems to be saying a tiffer of art that he says over there. So what does he say there? He says like this. Okay, so where do we know the concept of Goyrol in Yiddishkeit and in Torah? So we know about Goyrol, so we have in our Maamer, we have Goyrol in Kippur. Important. Where else is there Goyrol in Teresh V'Tzav? Actually, the word Goyrol is a Dibra Maskal, yeah? Ach begoyrol chol kisaretz, right? Ach begoyrol. Where's the Maamer? Look at Lamed Hey. Ach begoyrol chol kisaretz. Goyrol ha'imedaber. So there, right? So for Chalukas Saretz, we use a goyrol. So the Maamer, so the Rebbe says like this. So a father passes away and leaves a Yerusha. So let's say this father has a lot of real estate, a lot of richush. And he has houses in different places, fields, like back in the day. Yeah, he has a lot of chayah. Fine, so now we want to split the Yerusha. So one way, and this is the way Bezdin would use different times, and this is the process the family themselves use, you split the Yerusha based off Seichel. What's Seichel? The guy has real estate in New York, he has in Florida, he has in Eretz Yisrael, he has in South America, he has all over the place. There's different chush, and then he has different chafotzin that he has, and he has different jobs, different shtellas, and then he has a bunch of kids. He has 10 kids. So what do? So it's the b'chor and the pishnayim, but then how do you start splitting everything? So you could just sell everything and give everyone equal money, which is a way to less machlekes, more machlekes. Everyone does whatever works for them. Yeah? But the verdict can work on piseichel. You say this, okay, this guy lives in Florida. So let him take the home in Florida. This guy lives here. Let him use this. This guy's in real estate. Let him take this chayil. Like this guy's in jewelry. Let him take that. Right? In other words, there's ways al piseichel that make sense. Everyone take what works for their tchonis and the size of their mishpach, whatever. Right? There's ways you can use seichel and say, let's split it based off seichel. What makes sense? That's one way. But then what happens where it doesn't work that way. Everything is equal, right? There's 2 houses, the mamash look the same, they're both in the same block. There's no major milet to each one, or each one has certain miles, but the miles
counterbalance.
Right, they balance each other out. Right, that's a 4th Leif in Shnei Dvarim Shavim, where they have differences, but they end up in a place that they're equal, right? So then what do you do? So how do you choose then? So you don't, so you could say, okay, here comes Goyrol. So no, you don't run to Goyrol. We could do the Chalukah based off Ratzin. What's Ratzin? Ratzin is, das ist was ich will. That's what I want. Why? There is no why. If it's why, it's already Seichel and Midas. Ratzin. So there's a few brothers here, and the brothers come and say, Reuven says, I want this house. Why? I say, you see that house and you connect with it. What's the Mila? You can't explain to the Mila, because he himself doesn't know the Mila. That's what he wants. Shimon wants the 2nd house, and Levi wants the 3rd house. Perfect. Case closed. No need for a goyrel. They all wanted it. Ratzin, Seichel couldn't be the machriya here. Ratzin did. Ratzin is the one that paskin. So Ratzin could work. The problem is, what happens when even Ratzin isn't the solution? Ratzon doesn't help us. They all want the same house. Or all of them, you ask them, what's their Ratzon? There is no major Ratzon. Like, I don't know. Who cares? Right? The Ratzon doesn't function. The Ratzon can't be Machriya. When the Ratzon can't be Machriya, then we come, so we say, okay, Goyrel. Third party, right? Let the Goyrel choose. So Seichel, Ratzon, Goyrel. So he says in the Maamer, for them Zetman, that Ratzon, that Betzim Goyrel is not only greater than Seichel, it's even greater than Ratzon. Because even in a place where Ratzon can't be Machriya, Goyrel could be Machriya. That's what he says in Yud Zay. And it says also earlier places in Chassidus. Here in our Maamer, he says a shtickle andere word. What's the word that Goyrel? Where do we see that Goyrel is higher than Ratzon? This is Gimel. V'yedua ma'il sa Goyrel shul ma'il l'rek ma'aseichel gam me'Ratzon shul ma'il ma'aseichel. Why? Or wie zet men das? Sharei k'sha'adam matul Goyrel hu machlit the k'moi she'yipel ha-Goyrel kein yeritzayin. דמזה מוכח שהגוירו מגיע בדרגה של המיילה גם מהרצון, שלכן הרצון הוא כפי הגוירו. Here in the Maamer, it seems the Rebbe is not comfortable just with that word, which is that you see that where Ratzon doesn't work, Goyrel works. Because I guess Kasav you could come and say there's two inyanim there's two ways to Machriya here. Sometimes the Ratzon is Machriya, sometimes Goyrel's Machriya. Maybe I say the Goyrel's Machriya. Let's say I don't know. Seichel doesn't say, so we try Goyrel. What if you try Goyrel and they're not masking to the Goyrel? They don't accept the Goyrel, but they say right, the Goyrel is Reuben gets his house and Shimon says he wants that, and Shimon gets the other house. But Reuben says no, I want that one, and Shimon says I want that one. So the Ratzon could be on top of Goyrel, right? Because it's more a technical zach. But when you didn't use this, you use that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's hecher, it's tifer. Where do we see that it's hecher and tifer, that it's balabos? That is balabos. What's the balabadishkeit? And it's a davar mechudesh. The beer in Yud Zayin is a simpler beer. Because what does he say here? He says like this: that right, I have a way where I could use my Ratzon. My Ratzon could be the Machriya. But let's say the Ratzon doesn't work. I don't know what my Ratzon wants, or Reuben and Shimon want the same thing. So they make a Goyrel, and they follow the Goyrel. What's the pshat they follow the Goyrel?
Begrudgingly.
Huh?
First, it's begrudgingly. It's like.
But is it, right, well, initially it's begrudgingly. But is it actually begrudgingly? Meaning, ultimately, Reuben's living in this house for the rest of his life. Yeah? And Shimon is getting this house. So what's the word? They go in and say, okay, we couldn't figure out between ourselves, right? Little kids, okay, let the Goyrel. They surrender their Ratzon to the Goyrel. Right? They come to a matzah where they say, we want this Yerusha, right? We want something out of this. We want to send a Soyer La'avaya and a Soyer La'azaz. It's something that we want to do. And there's a decision, whatever the reason that led them to this, where basically they reached a stalemate. But L'pah, they came to a place where now they're saying, okay, you decide for me. But once that decision happens, it's decided for me. And I'm present, and I'm doing it. So that's the word. The pshat that Goyrel is able to have balabatischkeit over my Ratzon, das weiß that Goyrel is higher than Ratzon.
So you dafka want that issue.
You said there was a prior Ratzon.
Huh?
You said there was a prior Ratzon.
What? No, he said in the case where they both wanted the house.
No, I'm saying
Let's say without. What happens? When I make a Goyrel, what am I doing? What am I saying? What? I chose to make a Goyrel.
Why? No, yeah, you don't have to
Who cares
say.
that
Say the Gil came up.
Who cares that you chose to make a Goyrel?
But the kuda is that it wasn't just that the Goyrel deciding and I'm mixing out. It's the Goyrel.
It's not technical. It's
the Goyrel is now takes my place, and now chooses what direction I'm going in. Wo ich bin, wo ich halt.
Is it shaykh to say Shabar begin seichel that once you have a gear on your seichel, I don't know, somehow think that way, or it's only shaykh? I mean, always saying it's a gimel begin, that's what's in begin seichel. Begin seichel, we say taka that. When you smoke gear, the gear is higher than seichel because when seichel gets stuck, then.
No. So the emes is, we see this, and this is like one of the chilukim, and it's when they get to the end of the Maamer of Karu versus, let's say, the Maamer B'Yemesh Asar in Melukot Gimel, and the Sich in Chelik Yutes, which is brought here, which there Meret as Indian, how there's the Goyrol, the Bechira, that there's something L'mayla Mitam Vadas that's mashpia on the Tam Vadas, right? Mashpia on the Tam Vadas. Here we don't go into that. Here it's more about the Bechira being mashpia on the Goyrol. The whole conversation is on a higher level. We're speaking about in L'mayla Tam Vadas Gufa. We don't go into the Tam Vadas being mushpa. Tam Vadas being mushpa from the process. Can it happen?
How 19 you have the Adar, it should be normally Adar is that you follow the seichel, and
forget. Yitla Dover, forget. Yitla Dover is Yapla Gerot Kam Sheyil and Neged Hadas.
Normally Adar my standard, if I'm on autopilot, I have Adar, and what Adar is the whatever seichel says.
Our 19 is still debate. Lord has to get seichels.
Right.
But he brings there that how does it work when I want to, things are not equal, but I nevertheless want to use. Normally, Adar is on. I always have Adar. What's my Adar? That I should be a seichel like a mention, follow my seichel. Now I'm machlit that I'm putting my Adar.
Okay.
And he says my Adar is going to be.
Then the question is, so that's the question. So then what's pshat ratzin, and to understand the chiddush is ratzin, and then there's goyro. And what's goyro? We connect goyro. We associate goyro with what's l'mayla ratzin, the baal haratzin. Right? There's ratzin and baal haratzin, which is terms used like Siddur a lot, and that's Yom Kippur, lifnei havaya titaru, right? They would do the zrikas adam, lifnei havaya, in front of the paraychas. But Siddur explain what's right, lifnei havaya, not in front, hecher from havaya. And the same thing, Purim is lifnei, is higher. So when we say baal haratzin, understand Meret being baal haratzin down here by human being, and Alex Kam to get to the Eivish there. So when we speak about ratzin, so Chassidus, but even Kol, speaks about two, and in a few Bukaimis Boidadim boils it down to three Yifanim in ratzin. When we say ratzin, you could be referred to there's three dargas in ratzin. I don't mean here ratzin goli, ratzin amuchot. I think three kinds of ratzin as they relate to the kichas pnimium of a person. There's ratzin al pitam b'das, ratzin shalom ma'ila mitam b'das, and the ratzin atzmi. What's called the Rosa de Liba. Right? So Ratzin is a connection. I want something. I'm nimshach to something. Ratzin is also connected with Ava. Ava Hashem Aleikecha. The Abishar didn't want. Ava is connected to Ava, Meshicha. So, Derech Dugme, we get to Ava, there's three kinds of Avas. There's Ava, also of the Mishnah, Ava Tluya B'davar. Ava She'ena Tluya B'davar. Ava Tluya B'davar is Am in the summer. Ava She'ena Tluya B'davar is David V'Heinas. And then there's Ava Atzmis. Then there's Ava Atzmis. What are the three Eifanim? Ava Tluya B'davar is, it's a give and take, right? There's benefits here. There's to a person or to a thing that I gain value from. And yes, two people, they're friends. Why are they friends? Because of mutual interests and value that they bring to each other. Batal davar, particular ava. All of a sudden, Reuven doesn't need Shimon's chayr anymore because Shimon was a good guy to hang around, but then he got old and became boring. Or Reuven himself moved on and doesn't have the same interest that attracted him to Shimon before. Or whatever was interesting then, the world moved on. Those things aren't interested anymore, right? So, batal davar. Then it could be an ava she'ena tluya b'davar, David V'Heinas. Right, so you have a kesher atzmi, a kesher l'mayla mitam b'das, and a very strong kesher between the two very, very good friends. This is a very often reasoning of Kriyas Aspris. No matter what happens, we're connected. Now, so on the one hand, there's a very strong kesher there, and it's l'mayla mitam b'das, right? It's not based off reason and the conscious mind. It's a deep connection two people build between each other because there's some people they just connect. There's a chemistry. There's a very strong connection there. Even though the kesher is not built off tam v'das, but it's very much associated with tam v'das. It becomes somewhat dependent on on the conscious mind. L'mashal. They can be very, very good friends. They get married. And they move on in life. 10 years, 20 years, they didn't see each other. They're not on each other's minds. They don't think about each other, nothing going on. Right? Garnish it. And all of a sudden, one day, Reuven gets an invitation in the mail. Shimon's marrying off his kid. So you have to give to every friend you ever had. You have invitations. These days, it's easier. You just send out the... right? He gets an invitation. It's like, oh, Shimon's going through a simcha. And all of a sudden, he's like, oh, I'm going to fly across the world and I'll go to the simcha. Classmates. And it's not just that. It's all of a sudden, he's like, wow. Like, just seeing that invitation, and it's all those zichroinis and all that ava, that kesher that they have. Now, one second. How is all this ava and all this joy that you have because the guy's marrying his kid off, or because some other... It's disproportionate. It's like, you're not that excited that some yid is marrying his kid off. It's not because of the news, and not because of the letter and the update that you just got from him. It's right. It was the tamadas, the conscious mind, which is a trigger to bring the person back into your consciousness. Because it's subconscious. It's not there, so you're not in touch with it. And all of a sudden, right? So on the one hand, tamadas is there, but it's not like avatui bedover, where the tamadas creates the level of, okay, this is how much he's giving you, this is how much you care, and how much feelings you have. This is just something just to remind you, and what comes out is something much more deep from the depths of the soul. Then there's ava atzmis. Ava atzmis like ava ben. Ava ben, no such thing. 10 years, they're not in touch with each other, living in different places. They don't think about each other. Right? It's always there. Even when they're not thinking, and even when there's no ava gluya, but the ava is always there. Right? It's not an ava that you could wake up. There's always an ava dormant, and that's there within the person, because it's just like a person loves themselves, and as a rotzim lichyos, that's the way a person has a rotzim and an ava for their parents, kids, etc. Right? You know what I mean? And that, you don't tamadas is like malav lemayr. Obviously, it's sometimes it's more left, but that's all just in the gili. The etzem ava, it's always there, because tamadas is not a player there b'chlal. So there's when we get to rotzim, right? So there's things that I want, and that's called because there's a reason for it. Rotzim al pi tamadas. That rotzim is lamat mitamadas. What's the difference between rotzim lamat mitamadas and midas? That's a dakas dikei. Sometimes taka rotzim pitamadas and midas are synonymous, but there's pratis dikei chilukim. That's not negay for you, right? So it's shmat mitamadas. Then there's rotzim shalamai mitamadas, but is dependent. It needs the tamadas to awaken it. Without that, then it's completely it's hell and sheni b'mitzias, right? And then there's something that's beyond the whole musik of tikkis geluim tamadas are in there, because it's in atzmi. This is the ava, the rotzin deliba, that's a rotzin alev of a father to a son to a father. That's who he is. Just like a person wants to live and is himself. That's the kesher that a person has to their son. In a voida, that's naran and chaya yechida. Right, to sort of wrap up the nekuda. So when we speak about rotzin, we're in the highest level of rotzin. What are we talking? We're talking about something that be'etzem. Why do I want it? It's not rotzin al pi tamadas, and it's not even rotzin that's associated with tamadas. It's whole rotzin. So what's making me drawn towards it? Nothing. Das bin ich. Just like I want to live. Just like so that's the rotzin. So that's what a rotzin atzmi is. That's who I am. And yet we come and say, l'chayra, when you come to that level, l'chayra rotzin, that is the etzem ha'adam. Like the person wants to live. That's my rotzin. That's who I am. What could be greater than that? Goyrol is hecher. Goyrol is hecher. L'chayra, what happens if I can't make the choice? If I can't tap into myself and find what do I really want, and that's the deepest level of rotzin. Rotzin atzmi. What do I want? The etzem. So I'm giving it to a goyrol. It's not a higher level. It's an escape. I can't figure out myself. So I'm saying let the goyrol figure it out. But really we see that even though rotzin, in the highest level of rotzin, it comes to the deepest part of a person, let's say the rotzin to live, the rotzin from father to son. It's the greatest rotzin. Yet a person has the ability to transcend that rotzin. Not always we call it transcend. Sometimes a person will call the guy's a complete idiot. Right? But a person can choose not to live. He doesn't want to live. A person can choose to disconnect from his son, to disconnect from his father. So On one hand, you'll come and say this guy he's a little bari. He's not healthy. Right? A healthy person is supposed to want to live. A healthy person is supposed to have a connection with their parent. But we're not saying the fact that he did it. The fact that he can do it. The fact that we can go. We're not limited by that ratzon that we have. That's the koyach of a person. The koyach that we have to be a bala ratzon. We're able to be balabatim on our ritzoinus, even our ritzoinus atzmiyim, that l'chayr define in our magdir, our etzem mitzias. A person can choose to go against their basic survival instinct, against their basic kesher, and against the mishainli bayis ein adam, mishainli ishain adam, mishainli bonim ein adam. And a person can choose, say that I will not be an adam, right? Because that's the idea of the bala ratzon. We're able to go against it. So when a person comes to Geirul, when a person comes to a place of ratzon, a person can say, okay, my ratzon wants something, and yet I'm able to say, Geirul, you choose if I'm going to live or not. And then I'm going to follow you, and I'm going to live, or whatever it is, right? I'm going to make the biggest choice of my life based off what the Geirul says. So that for a person to make that Geirul, the Geirul itself is an outsider, but to go to the Geirul and say, Geirul, you do it, and I won't follow my rats, and I won't follow my basic instinct, that's because a person is able to tap into a place of Bala Ratzin, where I'm not defined by my own Ritzoinus, even my Ritzoinus Atzim. So when we get to the Eibishter, why does the Eibishter want Teirah Mitzvahs? Does the Eibishter want Teirah Mitzvahs because Teirah Mitzvahs are great? Yidden are great, in Ishtalshlis. But then there's Teirah Mitzvahs mitzad Havayeh, not mitzad Havayeh, they're Ishtalshlis, mitzad Ratzin, mitzad Kesed. Mitzad the Ratzin, why does the Eibishter want mitzvahs? You know, the mitzvahs is like Bala Atzis. As no Yivilah, Kach Allah Ritzoini Yisbarech. Nisaveh. This is what the Eibishter wants. It's Ratzin, it's not that the mitzvahs are pulling them. It's not that Yidden are pulling him. The Eibishter is one with Torah mitzvahs. The Eibishter is one with Yidden. The Eibishter is one with Yerub Techtay. He's one with it. But then the Eibishter is Baal HaRatzin. Shav Baal HaRatzin. Even those things that l'chayra are so me'uchad with him, Yisrael or Yiraisa, K'tzbrichu Kul Achad, Baal HaRatzin. The Eibishter is not mugder in that kesher, even though they're atzmi. Now, obviously, once we reach that place, so then vas teiro mitzvahs and vas Yisrael, the whole right. That's where the whole conversation starts, and that's where we get to bchira and levels in goyro and bchira, etc., etc.